Hello and welcome to this episode of In the Loop. Today, Gary travels to London to meet Managing Director Mark Sanderson of Morningstar Wealth.
Welcome, Mark, to the IA In the Loop podcast. This is our podcast series. It's been going since I last saw you when I was in Dubai in May. And we're really delighted to have you in the studio, in your own offices here in London, in Morningstar's rather kind of quite modern and quite futuristic looking offices.
Yeah, well, we like to think we're a modern and futuristic business. So now you're more than welcome, and it's good to see you.
I looked when I walked in. I love the three screens together and the way it's all bouncing. We have aspirations for Money Map Media to one day have, such a salubrious office. But seeing you in the UK and not Dubai, that's a refreshing change.
Yeah, it's a refreshing change for me this time of year. Anyway, it's nice to get out of the heat. Look, I spend a lot of time, as you know, not just in Dubai, but in the UK, Australia, India, South Africa, and in the US as well. So I'm lucky that I've got a pretty broad role, whether it's not just in the work sense, but in the geographical sense. So it keeps it interesting.
So tell us a little bit about so for those that don't know Mark Sanderson, tell me, number one, what your role is at Morningstar, and number two, just tell me. We'll do a potted history of a potted CV. So just do the first bit. What do you do at Morningstar? Where do you work? And what's your role?
Yeah, so I'm the managing director of Morningstar Europe, Middle East, and Africa, and Morningstar Wealth. And so our wealth business has within it our investment management businesses, so our model portfolios and our funds. It has our platform, which a lot of people internationally know us for, so the Morningstar Wealth platform. We also have a lot of enabling financial technologies. Again, folks would be familiar with Wealthcraft, but also Finametrica, the risk profiling tools, part of our estate. We've got a lot of those enabling technologies. And then Morningstar.com, so our audience business, is also part of the wealth group. So the Morningstar.com people go to read great content like the stuff you guys produce, and follow up on what's happening in markets, and Morningstar's data, research and insights is all captured there. So it's a broad business, and as I say, it covers a broad geographic region as well.
Fantastic, good answer. And I like the fact that Morningstar has so many different hats. I was just trying to my mind, Morningstar, and I might be wrong, when I was about 16, I remember buying some kind of lefty newspaper thing that was called Morningstar as well. There's no connection there at all.
So that's right. So there was the Morningstar was
the Morningstar.
That's right. Was a lefty newspaper, and growing up in the cities we grew up in, we would know all about that. But so definitely no connection with that at all. I mean, Morningstar is a business that's been operating since 1984, and people have really known Morningstar as this huge data provider. A provider of data, insights, and analytics. Morningstar fund ratings, Morningstar style boxes, and these have become essential components of how people think about analysing investments and understanding value for investments. So that's really where the business is core. But nowadays, we've the wealth business that I've spoken about. We've got a credit business, which is the fourth largest credit ratings business in the world. We've an indexes business. We've Sustainalytics for ESG data and a whole lot more, and we've a huge retirement business in the US focused on those big institutional retirement clients, and then we've got PitchBook LCD, which is the largest provider of private market data in the world. So Morningstar's a big organisation with a lot of strings to our bow, but the thing I like about it is it's a collection of startups. So some of the the experience I've had over the last 15 or so years running smaller businesses, and you still get that entrepreneurial, fast driven, high energy, high growth business, but you get backed by a phenomenal business with phenomenal resources, which is a real advantage for us, and the brand is a massive advantage.
So when I was saying about coming in here, the futuristic look. There are people in the office, which is a rarity for some firms in the city. You do find less and less people in offices these days. But one thing you said there about a series of small businesses, I think that's it's a really interesting way of looking at business, isn't it? Because that's ultimately every business is a series of small parts, and they have an overall overarching theme. But like I said earlier, I used to get a little bit confused because Morningstar were kind of a rival to us, but then also we would partner with Morningstar on II, which was Investment International. We'd use the ratings for our awards. It helps with that. And then of course you've got you've got the platforms now, and you're taking money. Is there a conflict of interest in any of that? Because you're providing wealth solutions, right? But you're also providing the competition with ratings. Do you ever feel like, there's a conflict there? Has it affected you in any way?
Well, so the first thing I'd say is, one of the things that defines this business is its independence. And the reason it's grown from, being in Joe's bedroom in 1984 to a 12,000 people, $15 billion market cap business is, that fierce independence. And so we've got a huge team of analysts, those are fund researchers and equity research analysts and behavioural scientists and all these people. The primary rule there is that must be independent, and that we don't influence that, and we don't get to influence that. And you don't get to be a lot of people would say that, but you don't get to be a business of our size, scale and breadth if you're not like that. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, I think this notion of competition as a kind of pitched battle is nonsense anyway. So every day I'm dealing with people who are platform CEOs, who are, management teams at investment management firms, DFMs, MPS providers. We are those firms who are in principle our competition are also our clients. Our mission is empowering investor success, and I think you do that by saying that we're all on the same side of the table, trying to drive the industry in a direction. And I think growing the pie, growing trust in advice, growing trust in investment management and financial services, that's good for everybody. So no, I never really feel that sense of competition. And to be honest, we don't think about competition too much. I think it's that whole thing about, focusing on what you can do, controlling the controllables and the impact you want to have. So we're not, don't get me wrong, if the competitor does something cool, we're like, that's cool, and we applaud it and we get engaged with it and we get excited about it. But we're definitely not trying to emulate anyone. And look, if I can ramble for a wee second longer, it's kind of the story of my last 15 years internationally. Everyone said you could only have QROPs internationally, you couldn't have SIPs.
Yeah, and look how that's changed.
And then look how that's changed. And that was a view that I took then, and we pushed then. And everyone said that no one will ever buy a platform internationally. Look how that's changed.
Yeah.
So I'm not really interested in trying to emulate what people are doing now, but we're really thinking about what's the thing that's going to empower investor success, enable advisors to deliver more good advice to customers, and how we drive in the next big evolution, the next big driver of that success. That's what I'm interested in, not really what's happening here and now.
I like that, empowering the customer success. It's when you're looking at our industry, there's a few things, and let's talk internationally for a second, and then I'd like to hear a little bit about your journey, this 15-year journey that you're talking about. We'll maybe whiz back a little bit before that, if that's okay as well. But just on this industry point, do you think that organisations such as Morningstar can do a little bit more for the end user, the client, ultimately, in helping ensure that best advice is paramount? And I say that knowing that it's something that you're quite passionate about. You guys have been the sponsor of the IA Advisory Best Practice Awards. Don't you think it's about time that as an industry we all did a bit more to make sure that the bad actors are seen off for good? What can we do?
Yeah, look, I think the first thing I'd say is it's so much better than it was. You know, I moved to Dubai in 2008. Or 2009. It was so much better than it was then. The standard in the industry has risen. Not just in people talk a lot about qualification standards, and those are important, but also regulatory standards. And there's some people who have built fantastic businesses now, not just in Dubai, but globally, who understand that building a great business with client centricity is the pathway to having a long-term business success. And so this notion that you can come and into the industry with no experience and, you know, within months can be earning big money and that's good somehow for the business, or for the industry, for the customer. Yeah. I think that's all but gone. Now, every industry has bad actors. Can we do more? Absolutely, we can do more. And I think that, you know, there are practices where we can encourage, because it's not just about disincentivizing bad practice, it's about incentivizing good practice.
Yeah.
So I think that, you know, but as I say, I'm a big advocate for what's been achieved internationally. When I first moved to Dubai, you know, folks would say, you know, why are you going there? It's the Wild West. And even I would say it's like someone picked up the 90s and dropped it in the middle of the desert. But look at the great businesses that have been built. Look at the ones that have disappeared.
Yeah.
And I think that, you know, I think that the progress is there, the intent is there. People want to build good, long-term, sustainable businesses. And advice is important. And I think talking about empowering investor success, the best way I believe you do that is through enabling great advice.
And do you think the impact of BOD 49, because I'm trying to remember when that was now, it seems, I mean, it's going to be 5 years, is it, BOD 49? Yeah. We were talking about it for a couple of years before that. Do you think that the impact is there? I mean, we've seen some companies come and go, but without picking on any individuals or any individual names of companies, there are some firms. Now I'm going to pick on one firm in particular. So Mark Donnelly and Bright. So Mark's, and by the way, you don't have to answer anything on this if you don't want to, but that situation and these global bans and all this money that's being lost by clients, and this it gets forgotten about in the noise, but there's still thousands of people that have lost millions of pounds, due to Bright. And then somehow, and I think it was a little while ago, he was able to invest in Mondial, and now he's kind of, he's in Dubai, he's on your patch, This is what I mean by alleged, let's call it alleged bad actors, if we're looking at that name. BOD 49, how are the regulators allowing that? I can't get my head around it. If they're serious about wanting to clean up the industry, and look at the money that's in Dubai, obviously it's becoming the centre of the financial universe at the moment, isn't it? It's incredible. Surely they want to make sure that they're not letting so-called bad actors reign supreme.
Yeah, look, I think that
there was a question in there somewhere.
Yeah, no. Look, so I don't know the detail on the Bright situation, other than what I've read in the press. So I won't comment on that directly, obviously. But the look, I think that first of all, there are bad actors in every industry. I also think that in financial services, and by the way, it's not unique to the offshore industry. Australia, South Africa, the UK, the US have all had a fair share of financial services scandals.
We write about them every day. Australia, especially, it seems there's one every other day.
And so I think but by and large, the majority of people who work in financial services want to do a good job for customers, and it doesn't matter where they're based. And I'm lucky that I get to spend time in South Africa, Australia, the UK, US, Dubai, Singapore, Hong Kong, all these places. And by and large, people want to do a good job for customers, because actually being an advisor is really hard. You've got to sit down. It's not just about, in fact, it's rarely about financial management now at all. It's about sitting down with someone in the front room and helping them make good choices to give them a good retirement, And I think often advisors are 90% clinical psychologist and 10% financial planner. But look, there's definitely more the industry can do, but it's not just the job of the regulators. The regulators, and I think, particularly in Dubai, I've had a fantastic relationship with the DIFC and the DFSA. I think they're, one of the most progressive regulators in the world. They're highly engaged. They work in partnership with firms, and I really can't speak highly enough of them. And I've got good relationships with our regulators everywhere. But I think industry has to want to do better. And so my question would be, for whoever these bad actors are, and I'm sure they're out there, in all of these places in which financial services operates, is that the job of the regulator, or is that the job of the provider giving them the terms of business?
Exactly.
And
so,
it's
kind of the job of us as well, the press, the independent press. We are completely independent ourselves. We do business in the industry. We reward some successes with certain awards that we hand out, and we're very serious about who receives that, particularly on the advisory front. On the best practice side, I mean, that's something you've got to be incredibly careful about, because these are rubber stamps almost, like a kite mark almost. But just going back to, I mean, and I don't know whether I was being a little bit unfair by bringing that up. I just feel right now it feels a critical point. Enough is enough with the with the scams and the bad actors, especially and I'm because I'm picking on Dubai a little bit. The regulators have got to do more, but you're dead right. The industry has to sort of get together and basically say no more. Let's not give them the terms of business. Don't take the money.
I think that's right, but I also think there's an opportunity to elevate the stories of people who are doing a great job.
Yeah, there is. Yeah, that's a good.
And
if
I think about that, so for every bad actor out there, I'm going to take Dubai as an example, right? For every bad actor out there, there's a Cape and Doria Abacus who's a fantastic advisor in business.
Know him well.
There's Stuart Ritchie, and there's David Smiley and Ross and the team at GSB, fantastic. There's Stuart McCulloch over there at Progeny doing an amazing job. And Chris Keelan's just set up Meta's incredible business. Dan Dickinson and Mark Beattie, really smart. But I remember, Dan and I probably arrived in Dubai about the same time. There's Hamza Shulchin, and I know Hamza's now in the UK. There's, for every bad actor, there is a list of great people doing great work.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I think you got to call. And that's just a handful. I could keep going.
Yeah,
I'm conscious I've not named any other.
You can't name everybody.
Yeah, and I'm also conscious I haven't named any of the great women advisors out there in Dubai, like George Howard and people like that. So, look, but I think elevate the stories of the people that are doing a great job.
Yeah. Well, hopefully we do that in our publication.
Yeah.
We kind of build this cult of personality sometimes, you know, and you get these so-called larger-than-life characters, and they tend to dominate. But I think it's important to to look across the teams. One of the things you were saying about your 15 years in Dubai and how it's changed. Can we whiz back a little bit? Just tell us. This is a longer form interview. Tell us a little bit about Mark Sanderson. So you're from Glasgow. You support Glasgow Celtic.
I do. Yeah.
And you've got an English team. Is it Man United or Liverpool?
It's all. I've always a soft spot for Man United, because when I grew up Celtic, as you get given your team at birth in Glasgow, but when I was be a young kid, Man United was the team.
Yeah. And
so I always had a soft spot for Man United, because Celtic weren't win very much back then, and Man United were, so that was always my thing.
You know what? I go back far enough to skip to Malou Macari.
Yeah, exactly.
He was great. And there's still a Lou Macari chip shop up at Old Trafford.
Well, he didn't have the best time as Celtic manager. That's the period where we didn't win anything.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, he's. Do you know what? That guy, he's a great guy. He's he's invested a lot of his money into sort of, charitable homeless shelters and the like, but that's another story. Tell me about Mark. Glasgow, went to school. Your dream was to be in financial services, I bet, was it?
Of course.
Yeah.
Now, my dream was to be, not a poor kid. Like, I think when you grow up, we grew up, in the environments we grew up in, I had just incredible parents and 3 brothers, and my dad died last year, but mum and dad worked 2 jobs. They were hard-working people. Mum started as a cleaner in the hospital and finished her career as a nurse on the wards, in the children's wards. My dad, did lots of things, and including driving a taxi, and he all went to night school and got a degree and made it, and they were always driven like that, And so, but really, my dream was just, I didn't want to grow up in that environment, because growing up in that environment, it was scary, and it's a violent place I grew up in, and you know this, when you live in these working class communities that were decimated by, I lived in
Barrow-in-Furness, I was brought up in.
Well, there you go, and we were literally in the shadow of a shipyard.
Me too.
Right, and so when there was no work in, the place was a grim place to be, and I always say that, when the shipyards were the jobs were in, every day felt like a summer's day, So that was it. My dream was to, and it wasn't about money. It was about having the choices and the options and the things, and we were, and that was such a big influential thing for me.
I remember the chip shop queue on a Thursday. The shipyard would get paid on a Thursday weekly in cash. And the queues around the corner in the chip shop. Normally with me stood there in there, age 6 or whatever,
That's right.
a crisp.
That's right.
£1 note. Or I'm sounding like I'm Asian, but you know.
But that's that thing of, I remember, Rabsy Nesbitt, for those people old enough to remember that stuff, was filmed in the chip shop round the corner. The pub that they used was the pub that my dad used to drink in.
Really?
And that was our upbringing, and books like Shuggy Bain that are harrowing, these harrowing books about Glasgow, that was our life, And so I never really had any designs on what to do, but just knew that wanted to escape that and be successful. My parents encouraged us to do that, while keeping being proud of that identity, because the people in those communities are the salt of the earth, and so again, when I think about what I do now, there's a lot about those communities and how do you make sure that those people also get the support to elevate themselves that we never had.
It gives you that grounding immediately. I love I grew up in a tenement building.
Same.
And used to play in the little close. We call it a close.
We call that close.
Yeah, playing with my Evel Knievel.
Someone's mum would throw you what we called a sandwich over the over the side. Yeah, that's right.
Just like and it was great. I had a really happy childhood. We were surrounded by poverty. There was, in these kind of transient areas as well, when you're in sort of tenement buildings and flats.
Yeah.
People are coming and going, but for me, it was a fantastic grounding. When I decided to, I wanted to become a journalist. That was always my dream. When I decided to become a journalist, there wasn't really much. There wasn't really a sort of route out of Barrow-in-Furness that didn't involve you going in the shipyard first, and I avoided that. How did you avoid the shipyard? What happened next for Mark Sanderson?
So again, at school, I think like a lot of kids that grew up in the environment we grew up in, I was a bit of a naughty boy and all of that stuff, but well-meaning, and I was lucky that my parents were bright, and and we read a lot. I was obsessed with books. I still am. And so we were always, me and my brothers, like, we were insulated from some of the environment because we had such a great home life, my grandparents as well. And by the reading, it always gave you this intellectual curiosity, which was great. But even at school, the New Deal had just been a thing, and they were saying, like, take a New Deal, be a plasterer. And like some of my mates who've become plasterers or sparkies or any of that have done very, very well for themselves, and it's not a bad route in life at all. But I had this desire to go and study, and I wanted to go to university, and in my school, I think they thought that I was a bit mad, because not a lot of kids from our school did that. And so when I went to university, I chose to study optometry, And my choice was like to be an optician, and my choice was very, very simple. I looked at the graduate programs and what one paid the most, and outside of the investment banks, which I knew wouldn't hire me as a boy from a housing scheme in Glasgow, Specsavers was the next highest paid. So I'll go and study that. And I did that for a bit, and then quite quickly realised it wasn't for me. And but at the time, I'd got a job working at Aon, the big global insurer, in their pensions team, and actually at uni I was probably close to full time at work and part time at uni. That's the way it kind of went. And I was working in the supermarket, and I was working in a call centre selling broadband. So I was doing all of that stuff, and so the team at Aon, the company was brilliant. The team were so kind to me, and they were great, and they gave me loads of opportunities, and I met some amazing friends. And so that became more and more important. So when I got the opportunity to switch my degree and instead study what was a new degree called financial services, well, they said, look, you can switch, do this degree called financial services. You'll get your degree at the end, but you'll also get a load of professional qualifications. I'm like, well, this is awesome. This is what I want to do. And so that was that. I was kind of hooked.
Fantastic. How did it go from there to the international side then? Because there's a big, look, even Glasgow's a big financial centre in its own right. You go to Edinburgh, it's vast. It's another city within the city, isn't it? It's what made you? How did you go from UK to international?
So I'd moved from I'd been in the UK, I'd been in London, and I'd come back and forth to Glasgow, and I'd changed jobs at this point. I was working for a company called Barnett Waddingham, biggest consultant actually in the UK. Yeah, great business, know them. Absolute fantastic business, and doing private client work on the pension side. And I loved that private client stuff. And always with me, the thing was my ambition would be too quick for the people around me. And I had a client who'd met some folks out in Dubai, and was talking about Q-Ops, and it's the first time I'd ever heard of it, and I sort of looked into it. And I found this business. It was an outsourced admin business. People will remember it as Brooklands Pensions. Yeah. And I rocked up, and I just split up with a girlfriend, and all the usual story. And I'm like, what am I doing? And after for a long time saying professional people don't work in Dubai, I said, why not? Picked up, went over there. And as part of that business, met Matt Tailford. Matt Tailford's now at Hoxton. Matt was just a great mate of mine, somebody I respect immensely. And yeah, I should have run 1,000 miles, but I didn't. Next thing I know, I'd accepted the job, and I'd moved over, and then when I arrived that day, found that Matt had left and gone somewhere else. So thanks for that, Matt. But yeah, and that was it. And then we started that, and then grabbed hold of that, and I think naturally where I built my own network and identity there, I said, like, if we're going to do things with this business, we need to do really good and positive things. That wasn't always the case as it turned out, but those were really formative years for me and important.
So when it comes to, and you're still there, you're still in Dubai after 15 years. We're this is a sign of a good interview, by the way. We've done half an hour.
Yeah, well,
so we're whizzing by.
It's editing required then.
Well, not necessarily. I think it's life's like that, isn't it? It's good to whiz backwards and forwards because we naturally do that. And in financial services, it's always about journeys and stories. And I'm really enjoying hearing your story. The move, sorry to hear about your dad last year as well. I didn't interject when you said that before. How proud must your parents be of Mark Sanderson? When you think back, and they see you jetting around the world, they see you living in the metropolis that is Dubai now. How proud were those guys? Yeah, are those guys?
I think both very proud of me as I am of them, but not of all the material stuff. I did have a moment. I'm lucky enough to have a nice swimming pool in my back garden and stuff, and I remember Mum and Dad coming over and sitting on the step of the pool, eating a Burger King in the pool, and thinking that's a little bit of Glasgow and Dubai, but it was cool. That was a cool moment. But they're not proud of the material things. Like, I love my wife, I love my kids. I've got the best wife in the world. She's most supportive and understanding and smart. You know, her and her parents and everyone are so bright. And my kids, I've got 2 amazing kids. Like, I think I'm a good dad and a good husband. I think I'm a good son, a good brother. I think I'm a good friend. I think my parents are more proud of that than any of the material stuff.
No, absolutely. No, I can see that. So, Mark, just what next? First off, what next? You know, for you, and what next for Morningstar?
Yeah, look, I love the industry that I operate in. I'm a big advocate for advice and advisors all over the world. I think advisors are maligned a lot. I think the work they do is important, and I think we need to make sure that more people can get advice, you know, from those great people that are out there. So for me, I suppose my mission is aligned in a way to what we're trying to do at Morningstar, which is enable more advisors to deliver more advice to more people, help them scale, use the massive advantages we've got in our brand and our resources and infrastructure, to go and continue to deliver on that. So, like, my goal is to just keep driving behind that in whatever guys I do. I love this business. It's a business I never expected to be in 3 years ago, but here we are, and I love it, and I'm surrounded by great people. And yeah, look, I think just want to keep driving the industry forward and being central to that, and working closely with those people that are trying to do great things, whether it's journalists, whether it's platforms, investment managers, advisors, of course, or anybody who's participating, to be on the same side of the table and really drive things forward for investors.
It's a really good answer and a great way to finish. Mark Sanderson, thank you for being IA's In the Loop podcast series. We'll see you again soon.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much for tuning into this episode of In the Loop. If you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop us a comment. We'd love to hear what you think. And if you're listening on Spotify or any other platform, make sure you follow so you never miss an episode. We've got more great conversations coming up your way. Catch you next time.